Tziona.
So thank you for the opening. Let's begin. So I want to try and make a case that English language teaching is a source of resilience, and I hope I can convince you. But I would like to start with the famous poem from the poet Eva Kilpi from Finland, who wrote the following: "Let me know right away if I'm disturbing you," he said, as he stepped inside. As he stepped inside my door, "and I'll leave the way I came. Not only do you disturb me," I answered, "you turn my whole world upside down. Welcome." So when we talk about upside down, let's look at the unique conditions of this year, this crisis. So first, we look at the issue of trust, the issue of trust predicament. What we saw was the lack of ability to trust, and we still see that. The lack of the willingness to be vulnerable, the lack of the attribution of good intentions to others. And I think this is so important to build relationships. The other thing is the rate of change. And we in English have become familiar with that term VUCA, which comes from the management theory, where we see in our chaotic world the issue of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and of course the change and the impact of the changing work conditions. And if I take the metaphor of nature and ecology and look at what happens when there is a major destruction, and then slowly, the cycle of adaptation starts to occur. We see renewal and revival, and then we see conservation, and then finally we see growth. So even if when there is such a major destruction, at the end, we can learn from it and grow. So what is resiliency? To use existing forces to adapt to changes and continue to function and promote actions, even to learn from it and grow from it. And then here we are, so many teams. What is a team resilience? So here we have a few parameters of what we mean by team resilience. And that would be the collective value of people's social networks when we refer to the cohesion and the benefits that this yields. Efficiency and flexibility. That means the ability to contain and recover, to be flexible and adapt to new circumstances and constraints. Of course, the importance of communication, being able to convey messages to teams and within the team, giving and getting feedback, encouraging professional dialogue and supporting from and within. The importance of meaning and hope. When we understand the value of the actions and accomplishments of the staff that increase the ability to face challenges. For example, when we relate to the joint goal, when we collectively become proactive. And this reminds me of the famous psychiatrist Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost anyhow." And the last thing is the work conditions, which I've already mentioned, which refers to the collection of physical and emotional resources available to a team member. And when there is burnout, that's a result of the chronic imbalance between work requirements and personal resources. So if we want to look at English teams, we want to examine the way we look at them from these 5 parameters. And then when looking at a working team, we can exert and examine and promote continuity, personal example and role modeling, the importance of courage and integrity as part of the main issues or the main characteristics in the team. Also, the ability to step backwards and examine what's happening in this team. Hope, again, the importance of creating a sense of optimism and hope. And also the use of paradoxical thinking, meaning that we think one thing and we think another, the negative and positive, but also think of all the advantages as one whole. So in this context, I want to reintroduce, I'm sure, revisit the famous theory that of Carol Dweck's growth mindset as a psychological trait, in which he speaks about and researched and proved that students succeed effort, dedication to learning, and mentorship from others. By the way, not only students, of course, but we're focusing on this. And this is as opposed to a fixed mindset. And even in PISA, from research in 2016, students who reported having a growth mindset, of course, there were different questions that relate to this, scored higher in their in our tests, reading, mathematics, and science. So the question is, can a growth mindset help disadvantaged students close their learning gaps? And it has become very clear this year, or this year and a half, that for students who are able to set their own learning goals, elaborate, or with help, elaborate learning strategies and master their progress, this disruptive experience of school closing may have been enriching even, because they could have grown from it, or they grew from it. But for students who are used to being led in their learning and who have little taste for steering learning on their own, then the closed school experience was devastating. So the question is, what strategies and practices can we take from this and to see how we can assimilate the growth mindset with students and teachers? So I want to suggest some 9 tools or strategies to think about when examining resilience under these circumstances. So number 1, I want to speak again about ability level groups, as difficult as it is. The weak have a conscience that they have low ability in such a case, if they are in what we call Hakpatsa Gimel. And the strong have a conscience that they are smart, which in turn impairs their willingness to challenge themselves for fear of failing and losing status. So ability groups are not very good for promoting a growth mindset. The second strategy that I would like to mention is to provide focused challenges to different students according to different difficulty levels, but that students should choose at what level they work. We're talking about the element of choice to be a very strong predictor of coping with challenging situations within learning. The third element, or the third strategy that I would like to suggest, is extensive use of learning with different peers. And by this I mean, at the beginning of each week, a lottery is held in the classroom for students to change partners for learning, meaning that the partners are changed during different periods. This allows to be exposed to different ways of thinking, to the diverse abilities of others, and also causes students to adopt different ways of learning with and from others. Another issue is providing positive feedback on effort, and this is very famous from Carol Dweck, and not on demonstrating ability. Praise the process and not the person. And if you praise someone, if you decide to praise someone, always add a reason. You're really good at, let's say, writing because you see that you invest thinking before you start. So there's something very concrete, very explicit. And in this way, positive feedback becomes something that you can grow from and not as an innate characteristic. The fifth strategy is extensive use of the term learning errors. It's okay to make mistakes, to make it clear to students that mistakes are not necessarily a negative thing because you can learn from this, from them, from this. I also want to speak against the idea of voting in the classroom. And with that, you can see from the graphic, from the picture, that it would be a good idea to reduce some of the typical question raising in this way. By this, I mean, since there are students who always raise their hand and are willing to risk answering questions, even if they're not sure of the answer, and those that never do. So the suggestion is the teacher has a cup of, let's say, notes, or even in younger age, popsicle sticks, where the names are written, and teacher randomly pulls out the name of one of the students. And in this way, the students are constantly aware that they may be asked by the teacher, but at the same time, it doesn't matter because it's okay to make a mistake. And the idea is to create this environment where students take risks with language, which we know is so important. The seventh strategy that I would like to propose is adherence to language that encourages motivation. Instead of saying or training the students to be able to say, I do not understand the exercise, instead they say, I do not understand the exercise yet. And again, it's a process. And the idea is that students learn that we're talking about a process that is gradually moving on. The eighth strategy is to teach about famous people who have succeeded as a result of hard work. Not so much of Kochav Nolad, but rather not like an innate talent, but something that you work on, something that you learn from experience. And the last strategy is to dedicate space to a growth dialogue that helps growth and promotes learning, creates a relationship of trust and meaning, and most importantly, gives a sense of security, which allows one to learn, make mistakes, correct, and succeed. So here is a famous example that I found on the internet about growth. And this is a poster that can be everywhere. And some occasions, according to the ABC, is nice. But the idea is examples of what students can learn and teachers can teach to do in order to promote the growth mindset. And of course, to also think about in terms of bridging gaps. So where do we want to go from here? So in the issue of English language teaching, we're looking at the knowledge, the skills, the experiences, the values of connecting to reality, learning where the student is, and then moving on from this based on something that they can handle. And when we enter this classroom that we have, and it doesn't matter which kind of classroom, these are the messages that we want to promote, that students feel brave, creators, explorers, important leaders, and that they can change. So with us in English, we had so much activity that has gone on this year and last. And on the level of elementary school, we had programs that were that have started this year, like the English Days project and the writing projects that were done not only for certain sectors, the Speak Up, the Turn the Page programs, building blocks, of course, the English portal that has been expanding all the time, the teaching units that we will hear in a few seconds more about from Simone. 5 minutes of English that is still available and is very, very suitable in these days. Learning in Tune, thanks to Howie, that we all learn to appreciate so much. And the national online broadcasts even for grades 3 to 6. And the same and more we have to offer, all available, links from our site for junior high and high school. I won't go through the whole list, but know that it all exists. But I do want to point out to a very special initiative that started this year, and here there are many new people joining us, and that is within the curriculum courses, we have a special opportunity and wonderful group of instructors from colleges that joined our PLCs, our PLC on curriculum implementation as a joint course. This is something that is unique, very unique to English, and I really would like to take this opportunity not only to thank the instructors that joined us, but also to encourage others to do the same in this year to come. And I would like to end this talk with this short, maybe poem even, by Aaron Bass, who said, "A choir. If you make people around you play the song of their lives harmoniously, you lead." So thank you.